Now we're talking. Now we are into the era of rare games that I'm familiar with. I think there were just a couple of N64 games that I had to check out just to remind myself. But yeah, I played all of these extensively and enjoyed them.
Killer Instinct Gold, man.
Gold specifically meaning, it's kind of like Ultra Street Fighter as opposed to Street Fighter. Like this was just a, what was added to it? What was the difference between Gold and the original Killer Instinct?
Well, the original Killer Instinct was actually very different. And they did bring that to Super Nintendo, but Gold was more of like a variant on 2, but it was still even quite different from 2. So they like had the characters from Killer Instinct 2, but then it also had like 3D backgrounds and all of that rather than pre-rendered backgrounds.
Oh, okay.
But it was weird because like you still basically played the game in 2D, but like somehow like when you got to edges and things like that, you would like move around the space sort of in a 3D aspect. It was a little weird, a little different. But this game was my jam. Also, remember, Killer Instinct was like the game that was almost like an advertisement for the N64. You know, it was like coming soon to the Ultra 64.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And
yeah, Ultra 64 is kind of synonymous with Killer Instinct in my brain. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's pretty crazy that like this game kind of came on the scene. Kind of had some Street Fighter elements, some Mortal Kombat elements, but then the combo system just made it a totally different thing, its own beast. And because it was a game that got me hyped for the 64, I had it from day one when it came out, and just like that was my jam. That's what I played with friends constantly.
Does it hold up? Is it good on the Xbox controller?
It does work well on the Xbox controller. It was also like I had actually written articles, like one of the first games that I had written about. It was like,
oh, interesting.
Here's how you do a 60-hit combo, which I can't do right now. But I managed to get up to some 14-hit combos, so I felt pretty good about myself. Nice. Actually the first night when I started playing Rare Replay, I was just popping through some things. They're like, oh, I'll try out KI Gold. And then I can't, like, how do I do this? And like, okay, I can get auto doubling, but like, how do I link? And then started looking things up, and then went with Maya because like she all of her moves are like back to forward. So it's like basically I'm always guarding, and then I can go into an attack and start a sequence. So like that was an easy character to grab onto and start learning the systems. And then like, all right, I'm not leaving this game until I get all the way through the arcade mode and kill Gargus. And like that was my first night with Rare Replay. And then I got into some other characters and just to get some variety of footage and like get these guys down. Actually, it's a pretty decent training mode, like shows you all the inputs that you're doing. I will say, I know there have been some people out there who have told me about issues with Blast Core freezing up. I haven't had anything like that.
Oh.
The only glitch I have seen is actually in KI Gold, and I was using Tusk, and one of his supers is basically supposed to launch him across the screen at the enemy. For whatever reason, like it's glitching out to turn Tusk into like a Final Fantasy Dragoon. He just like flies off the screen and doesn't come back down for like 20 seconds.
Nice. Does he deal heavy damage when he comes back in?
No, he just falls.
Oh. I would imagine there's falling damage and.
Yeah, no falling damage there.
But this is one of the deep games. This is one of the games that regardless of whether you're a fighting fan or you're familiar with the Killer Instinct franchise, you should play it. You should be familiar with this game. Would you say it's one of the easier games for people to pick up that aren't like fighting fans? Like,
yeah, I mean, like again, there's a training mode and all of that, so you can start figuring it out, I think.
My favorite thing about Blast Core is how quick you get into it. I mean, like each mission, I think the objectives are laid out really easily. I think it's really clear. Like there was a bit of a transition trying to figure out exactly where I had to be on the map and what I had to do at the time. I actually ended up getting totally stuck on a mission, but I had played Blast Core for like 20-30 minutes and was like, I should probably like move on to another game. But I think that's just. It's just really fun, and it feels like a kind of game where they were really focused on fun, constantly, and they were just constantly working on these tiny missions and tiny scenarios.
It's funny to me going back to it how quickly you get into some of the other vehicles. Like they don't like exhaust. Okay, like here's how you do this with a bulldozer, and like do it for 3 or 4 levels. Or like okay, here's a bulldozer. Okay, now here's a flying mech that just like stomps on buildings. Like wait, what already? Like I didn't realize it happened so fast.
And yeah, and it's just about finesse with movement. Like it's really gratifying to just in one leap, like go over a skyscraper and like crush the whole thing to the ground. It's cool that you can get out of your car. That's kind of revolutionary for the time period.
Unlocking
that was like
cars. It is also like it. I saw like the previews were happening a lot of times with Body Harvest, so like I always kind of saw those two as like side by side.
Yeah.
And Body Harvest was more or less like the precursor to like GTA 3. It was like
I was much less familiar with Body Harvest. I definitely at the time played Blast Corps a ton, and I think that was on the specific recommendation of a friend of mine. Like someone else I knew that had 64 had tried it out. I was like, this game, I can't stop playing this. It's really fun. And it holds up. I thought the camera would be really restrictive. I thought it'd be really confusing to figure out like what buildings can I destroy, what can't I. Specifically because if you get some of those, most of the time you're trying to protect this thing, this giant big rig to like get to where it has to go. And if you like even just tap it, the whole thing will blow up. And so you're like, oh, I got to go destroy that building that it's about to run into. So you're like driving at full speed towards it, but the camera's really close on you. So it's like you don't want to go too fast because you're going to ram this thing.
I will say that my dump truck skills are lacking.
Okay.
Like it's like I was just having a hard time like getting the drift. But it's still though. It's like it's a great fun mechanic. It's like you have to drift sideways into this building to destroy it with the dump truck.
Well, I mean, you talk about control and being able to manipulate the vehicles, and what I like is that it can be frustrating sometimes. There is a bit of a learning curve to some of the vehicles, but that's just the game itself.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're using the vehicles to try to do all sorts of other complex things. It's like you just got to ram it into that building.
I will say it does lack a little bit like now, just because like they're like the buildings are basically just squares.
Yeah.
Like they don't fall over, they don't topple, or like nothing like it's like I look at Crackdown 3, and the stuff that they're talking about with that demo. I'm like, can you get rid of this whole crime syndicate thing? Can we just like run bulldozers through this? Let's just do that. Let's turn this into Blast Corps.
Yeah,
what
giant
are you
mechs.
doing?
That's what Crackdown needs. They need giant mechs. So I guess that's like this gets 2 thumbs up from me just because I was surprised that it held up so well, and I was surprised like how easily Jet Force Gemini. Not to jump ahead, but like that's a game that the controls are like they take you a while. Where the controls here are simple, not because it kind of takes you back to like a specific time, that you remember other games controlling similarly. Like it is a very unique game, but it's still just very gratifying to get in. That's always the big question: is like how much time am I actually going to spend with this? And I only stopped playing because I got actually stuck like on one level. I'm curious like how deep that game is and how big I remember it being.
Moon gravity.
Didn't get to the moon. Yeah, nuts.
Banjo-Kazooie, like I feel like Banjo-Kazooie is where Rare really got to dig into their personality, like hardcore for the first time. Now, there was some Donkey Kong Country stuff with Cranky Kong, but here it's just like, man, like you guys are all out. Like Kazooie is complaining about tutorials and everything.
They do a lot of fourth wall breaking, actually.
Yeah.
But it's still within the same charm of the rest of the game.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is like it looks like really like cutesy and family friendly, but there's like always this like tinge of like a bit of a dark side there.
Well, it's just a self-aware game, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting comment at the time to a game like Super Mario 64, which was like, I think I heard some bad things about Donkey Kong Country or Donkey Kong on the 64. That wasn't that great. I think like a lot of franchises were kind of curious of whether Bubsy and all that stuff, like how we're going to transition, to 3D. And I just remember that world being so enticing, like really kind of like Diddy Kong Racing was back in the day. It was just like fun to explore these environments, and they did a good job of like realizing them and not making, trying to make something super realistic that looked really blocky and fake, with what the 64 was capable of. But just fun getting power ups and fun exploring that world.
Yeah, well, and it's just like so many things that like I had forgotten about, like the little like the transformations, like Mumbo turned you into a termite so you can go through the termite mound.
Oh yeah,
it's like
that's just level 1, man.
And they put the googly eyes on everything, and you got and then you like start picking up Jinjos and notes and like it's overboard on collectibles, but then like it makes fun of itself for being overboard on collectibles.
Yeah, but it's like it just offers so many different kind of, I don't know, degrees of depth for gameplay. Like you're right about the collectibles, but it changes up every time. And like this is why I get so mad that we don't have another Mario 64. It's the same way I'm mad about we don't have more Banjo-Kazooie, because they do just the brilliant thing of just saying, okay, you have an overworld, but you're going to go through portals to go to different places, and that's how they justify doing all different kinds of maps, right? You've got, your more generic kind of like basic grasslands and hills maps, and then you go to an ice world, you go to volcano worlds, you go to all these different places, and it's just, they don't ask for your forgiveness for doing like a cheapo, let's jump through a painting or let's go through a portal to go to these worlds. They just do it, and it ends up being awesome, and it shakes it up all the way through the game.
Mr. Ben Moore, I don't know if we've ever had a conversation ever about Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah.
Why do you love this game?
I love this game because it has a rare touch in ways that some of their other stuff doesn't. Like, there's this fairy that you can find, and she just says hilarious, like, not riddles, like little poems about why Gruntilda's so gross. Like, oh, she brushes her teeth with tuna,
No,
or
it's
something like that.
salted slug or something like that.
Yeah, and she's hidden throughout there, and you can find her, and the only reason you find her is just to hear these stupid things that are and like, what other games do that,
That's very important.
It is.
That's very important to the end of the game, because you end up going into a quiz show and you have to answer those things.
Right.
Oh,
in
wow.
order to do well and progress through this like crazy little puzzle quiz show at the end of the game. It's so good. Because it's like the main baddie is just as kind of, I don't know, self-aware as the rest.
Well,
of
everything
the
she
game.
says rhymes.
Everything that she says rhymes, but
And then like
poorly.
she's basically just like kidnapped Banjo's sister so she can steal her beauty and become more beautiful.
I also don't think the design of Banjo-Kazooie gets enough credit. I feel like each of the levels feels big enough that it feels like a world, like you're going into a totally different location, but they're not so big that it's overwhelming and it gets super tedious collecting everything. Like, it's just the right size where it's fun going over that hill or going into the next corner, trying to find, that last music note or whatever it is. And the other thing is, I think they roll out your special abilities in a really, really good way. Right away they tell you, okay, here's 2 or 3 things that you can find, and it's that Metroid thing where you're like, oh man, I wonder if that thing that I couldn't get before, now I can get with this new Kazooie power, or whatever it is. And all of that stuff happens at such a satisfying pace that it really makes it easy to just kind of keep going and keep playing.
Now, Jet Force Gemini is a game I did not spend a lot of time in. I played as much of it in the Rare Replay collection as I played originally when it came out. Might have borrowed it from a friend. Might have, I think that might have been one where I saw the name Rare and was like, wait. Like, after I played GoldenEye, I'm like, I missed this one. Oh, okay. I guess that's why I missed it. It kind of reminds me of that Star Fox dinosaur game. Like,
Oh yeah, Star Fox
it just
Adventure.
seems like it's very unique, which is great. But it also reminds me of like Oni from DMA, and from like originally Rockstar, like was kind of their interesting, crazy take on like how you would move through an environment, and that's to me what was so magical about Ocarina of Time and Super Mario 64, where like that's it, we're still doing that, basically that model as far as like action adventure games in 3D and platforming games in 3D, and so many other games at the time like really tried to do some weird gimmick about what would control your movement and what would control your aiming.
Yeah, well, they were trying to do third-person shooting and figure that out, and I was actually surprised at how much platforming is in it. One thing that's nice, though, which I don't know if you got to experience, I was having a real hard time with the game when we first streamed it on Monday, but then right before I started playing for Capture, they issued a patch that gave it modern controls, basically just like flipping the sticks and giving you an inverted option and that kind of thing. So I was like, oh, okay, this is like I can actually play this game.
See, that seems to me something they would do because
Yeah.
of like a backlash, Like that's not like, oh, we launched the game and we were just about to add this in, but we just added in later. Like that would seem like just kind of early vibes are
It was
getting
a
back.
pretty quick turnaround. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
maybe a backlash for testing or something, where they didn't like realize that they could do that until too late in the development cycle, and they just barely got it out in time. But a week or two is just, it's not enough time to do something that drastic, I don't think.
Right.
But again, it's like that weird edge of like, oh, okay, this looks like kind of a cutesy thing, and then like, no, this like thing gets stomped and blood goes all over, and you're picking up ant heads, you know, the things that, you know, it's like, if you shoot them in the head, then you can pick up the head.
Yeah, it's a little Starship Troopers in there.
Ben, you actually played this like back in the day. Like we're catching up to it, but like, what are your memories, Jet Force Gemini?
So Jet Force Gemini is a game I loved as a kid. I played actually a lot of multiplayer with my friends. I played through the game multiple times, and
Is that like co-op, basically, or
no, it was competitive, like
okay.
deathmatch multiplayer, and I loved just the chaos of Jet Force Gemini. Like some of those firefights you would get in, like the missiles flying everywhere, all of these ants, heads popping off all of the time. It was very Starship Troopers, and it was a kind of chaos that like I didn't associate with Rare. You know, I was used to Banjo-Kazooie, Donkey Kong 64, that sort of stuff, and so it caught me off guard. And I remember later when I didn't have access to it anymore, I'm like, man, I really want to revisit Jet Force Gemini, and I think my soul got crushed a little bit. Like, I played it a lot on the Rare Replay collection, and then a couple of years ago, I actually did get it. I bought it again on N64 and played it, and no matter how long I tried, I couldn't, like, it just felt terrible. It's like, it just seems like a game that is meant to have 2 analog sticks and didn't, because I just never got the moving and aiming to be good. And on Rare Replay Collection, it's terrible too, because the up on the right stick is jump.
Yeah,
but no, that's what I'm saying. The modern controls, like it put it to a twin stick thing.
Yeah, but it's still not quite.
Yeah, it's
right.
still a little weird.
And like even when you stop and aim, your reticle moves way too fast, and it's just it doesn't feel like it's supposed to feel. And, I
don't think it would feel right playing that game with intuitive controls at this point. I also played it back in the day, and it took a long time to master. Never mastered it, actually. I don't think you can master that. But
I don't know if I had a lot more patience as a kid or what it was.
I think we all did.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Or we're just more committed, you know, to one specific game.
Yeah.
You know, like now we can be really fickle, and I mean, talk about being fickle. You get 30 games, so you're just like, you hit that. But I basically hit that point where like it started to get hard a little bit, and I was like, all right, on to Banjo-Kazooie or something else.
There's just a tone and style and feel to Jet Force Gemini though that none of the other Rare games have, and I think if you were to say what's one Rare game you would like to see reinterpreted in a modern age, it would be Jet Force Gemini.
So we have figured out through detective work that you are the only person in the office that's actually played Banjo-Tooie
back in the day,
in its entirety.
Absolute travesty.
Well, here's the opportunity.
Oh my God!
Everybody can fix that.
I did put some time into it last night, and it is freaking great.
So if you've played Banjo-Kazooie and you never played Tooie and you got Rare Replay, should you just jump right into 2?
No. Well,
I
it
think
depends on how soon you've played Banjo-Kazooie, because there's so many things to appreciate about Banjo-Tooie as a sequel.
Yeah, I mean, it starts in the same opening area, and so like the tutorials are still there if you want to like, you know, relearn how to do things, but it treats you as almost as if you're playing the same game, although it still does that fourth wall thing where it's like, yeah, you know, this is what happened in the other game. This, you know, you didn't get to do this because you were playing Banjo-Kazooie. You know, it's like, okay.
Yeah. But it's cool because you're still like in the same home. It makes sense contextually to the story that you're still in the same home, but kind of the same events happen and everybody's rolling around.
One of the main characters right away, and then you like run into his wife. And
Yeah.
it's like, and they don't say anything to her. They don't want to let her down. It's like, hey, the kids are in there.
he dies.
Oh my
Spoiler
gosh,
alert, but it
yeah.
happens immediately. But of course, you can get a chance for redemption later on. But you know, it doesn't do any of the like terrible tropes of a sequel, like the whole God of War, like we're gonna steal all your powers 5 minutes in, because we want you to know what you're striving for in the end. No, you keep all your moves.
Yeah, you keep your powers, and like you immediately start getting new stuff.
And you keep all your moves, and you get new moves, and it's like the way that they like adapt the controls and how like the certain button combinations to pull off the new moves are just brilliant. It's like, you know, you add a shift button to to the N64 controller, and then suddenly it opens up a huge new world of moves. Later on in the game, you actually split up Banjo and Kazooie. They get their own moves. Like all of the gameplay just keeps evolving in ways that you don't expect, and it doesn't really need to, right? Because one of the things I love about Banjo Kazooie is that you actually feel a pretty great amount of control for how the N64 controller especially was back in the day. So I was always really happy about the amount of control you had over the unique different types of moves in Banjo Kazooie. And Banjo Tooie, it just explodes. There's a ton more.
Yeah, and it was also really interesting too. Like the immediately it's like, oh, you can play as Mumbo, and then you get this giant statue and just start wrecking through things and like kicking doors open that you couldn't open on your own. And
and just the animations alone, like Mumbo controls the giant gold statue, and I don't know if anybody had like those way back in the day, a football toy where like you have a kicker and you push his helmet down and his foot goes out like that.
Right.
Just like I swear. They stole the design probably straight from that toy, because like they have one little kick animation. It's so cool. It's so charming. You just walk around and go, and you just walk around and kick stuff.
And they kind of like, they kind of like go out of their way to like justify certain things. Like there's like the Jinjos like have their own village and like these families of Jinjos living around.
So you go to a bunch of new areas, so it's not the same map.
Yeah. So it's basically like Grunty's sisters like drill their way in, and then like pull her like animated skeleton out from the grave, and then they escape, and you follow the tracks of the whatever the machine that they were in.
Yeah, so originally you're in this valley, and then it's basically just your house and then Gruntilda's castle, but now you just leave that area, and then it basically amounts to Rare just saying, okay, well, we have all these characters, why don't we just explore the background of all of them?
Sure.
And so you just kind of finally explore the world. Instead of having a castle with a bunch of portals you go through, now you actually have a big world to explore where levels kind of make more sense contextually as you travel to the other castle, basically.
But in a game like this, you really appreciate new stuff. Like you were talking about before, they don't take your powers away, and they just keep adding more. You're going to more areas. Some people would say like that's kind of misguided, that you're just kind of dumping more stuff onto the game as opposed to like really making like a different sequel, really changing things up. But it sounds like this is. Not only did they do a good job of doing it, but this is a kind of franchise that's how you do a sequel. You just kind of like constantly surprise people and send them into to crazy circumstances, give them crazy powers.
Yeah, one of the things that Ben brought up about Banjo-Kazooie, the design, like that's why it's so impressive to me, actually. The fact that you can keep all those same moves, but most of them you might forget about because you have such an impressive set of new ones. That being able to play as all the different characters and like the innovative ways that you can play as them, it's just an awesome full-bodied sequel, and everybody needs to play that game.
Yeah, I think if anything on this collection, that's like the most likely for me to actually play from all the way through.
If you want to understand, I loved Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts for what it was. It was a great game, but to understand the disappointment that a lot of people have for why it's not just Banjo 3.
Right.
Playing Banjo Tooie makes it all make sense.
Perfect Dark is the first game that I actually monitored the development of.
Oh, okay.
Like I was just going into college, and to me, games, I'd hear about something and I'd read about it, but I really wouldn't like pine for it. Like maybe like the Super Star Wars games on the Super Nintendo, but like I was obsessed with the development of this game. Like this was, I never really got as deep into the Metal Gear series. As
so you definitely remember like the photo thing that they had, like the Game Boy camera turning, putting your face on the characters.
Oh yeah, they said all sorts of different stuff that they were.
That got axed.
And just and just like finishing GoldenEye and just wanting like more levels. You know what I mean? Like just before like we got like map pack updates. And I'm like, I just want more maps. I just want more content with this model because man, this is like the best shooter I've ever played. One of the only shooters that I'd ever played.
Right.
Yeah. And the sad thing is, like, there's no chance of ever really getting GoldenEye. Like Activision did that play where like, oh yeah, we'll give you GoldenEye, and they sort of made it kind of like it, but not really. But
I mean, this is basically the version they've already released already for for the 360.
Yeah.
We can we'll play it again, and damn it, we're talking about it again.
Yeah, yeah.
It's perfect dark.
It's in the rare replay.
But I just told all my friends when it came out. I'm like, I'm not doing anything for like 2 days. I'm just gonna play through this game. I had friends like calling me like, how is it? I'm like, it's so good. Like, but it's great. It's awesome. Huber, perfect dark.
Perfect dark. I know.
It's got this Blade Runner thing going on too, but I didn't really think about it originally.
Oh sure.
I hate that you brought up GoldenEye because I hate comparing them because I have such an affinity towards GoldenEye. But focusing on Perfect Dark, like you were saying, following the development, I remember them talking about the expansion pack a lot for N64 that you needed to play. And I remember that was just a crazy concept as a kid. But same thing, going from GoldenEye and just wanting more and wanting to just play through a new story and a fresh take, like Blade Runner style. I remember just every time looking through magazines and just like waiting for this. And the day we got it, all my friends came over. We didn't even start playing the campaign. We just all sat down and started deathmatch.
Yeah, that's how we did it yesterday too. It was like, all right, let's get the deathmatch out of the way first.
Yeah.
Then I'll play the story when you guys go home.
The weapons. The weapons were so cool.
Oh my God.
The weapons, there's so much innovation in the weapons. I remember, I think it was Nintendo Power.
Yeah.
Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but who knows, it was so long ago. Just reading about the laptop gun. It blew my mind. I couldn't wrap my head around that. That was the first thing I wanted to try. I wanted to get into multiplayer, and I wanted to throw down a laptop gun and have it get kills
Which
for
is
me.
a decent machine gun when you're not chucking it out
exactly.
into
Very
a laptop.
accurate.
My
Essentially, it's
friends
just like,
would be so bitter because I would use the Slayer, which is the remote controlled rockets. So my favorite map, I think the best map in the game is Area 52 because there's these sections. It's a big map. There's a giant area with like towers that you can get in and snipe from. I remember just always getting the Slayer, going up in the tower, and then just guiding missiles through the entire level. Oh my God.
the Farsight, what a crazy weapon.
Farsight!
We're calling out so many things that we didn't get footage of. But
There's never been anything. Oh, you're getting footage of that Farsight. I will get footage of that Farsight, man. That gun is so good, and it's funny because when you play in multiplayer, it's like, it's one thing if you're gonna like peg a guy with the Farsight that's on patrol, some poor NPC who's just kind of slowly like walking down a hallway. It's like, yeah, the guy's toast. But like actually getting someone in multiplayer that's like running down a hallway, and then he like runs closer to you, so he vanishes, and then you're like zooming in and out. It's like, I totally lost him. Where'd he go? Because he went down some staircase or something. It is so gratifying to kill someone. You can imagine
cross map through 17 walls headshot. Yeah, it's amazing.
You can imagine just running down a hallway and you're like, where did that come from? And like,
let alone playing with like 4 people too, and you're just like,
thanks for making the note, bud. I appreciate it. Again, I will help in any way I can to get footage of this excellent weapon. But I think that's the big thing. Like, you know, GoldenEye had the franchise adaptation that was so satisfying. Like it kind of one-upped a lot of the action sequences from the game. Like there were a lot of, you know, bits like on the train. Like it's not nearly that huge of an action sequence of like him actually like getting. I don't think Bond actually does get on the train. Like he like puts the tank on the, you know, the tracks, and they're like, oh, what if he actually like tries to sneak through? So it just kept like one-upping all of these movie scenes. But it was really about action. Like there's a little bit of gadgetry. Like there's a lot of objects you had to deal with. But Perfect Dark was just so much more clever as far as like all the traps that were in the missions, all the, like having the secondary mode for everything, like adding multiplayer that I could just disarm you. Like that was so gratifying when we played it the other day, and I just like run up to. I think it was Hugh Huber, just like
the Magnum. You see the gun like
have an alt mode. I mean, it just shows that like they were constantly adding things, not because it's like, oh, these are mistakes we made with GoldenEye or ways GoldenEye could have been better. It's just like, no, let's make our own secret agent. Let's put it way in the future. So whatever crazy idea we can think of, like, let's do that. Yeah, let's make that fun. Let's have you be invisible in parts. Let's have like an NPC just be a floating laptop. Like it was just a. And just fun scenarios. Loved the villa. Loved like playing Die Hard and like escaping hostages there. Loved Air Force One. Like that was really great. There were like 2 different, you know, directions you could take. I could go.
The story
on
gets
kind of
weird.
Oh, the story is super weird. The
story
dialogue
is
is super weird.
as hell.
They sell the Skeetars being like scary, and like they're not. You know, like, there's definitely like kind of an alien vibe.
Scary.
You know?
They sounded scary, and on the N64 at least, most kids that played it, when you know, they sounded scary, and you had to kind of like. It had almost like an alien vibe to it, where it's like you hear them a long time before you see them.
Yeah, like
and they're invisible,
hype them up.
right? They're invisible until they attack you, for the most part. You know, looking back on it, of course, it's just like, oh, I know where they're going to be. They patrol in the same area or whatever. But the first time you play it, that was very effective.
Yeah, that last level, yeah, you don't know. Like sometimes they're in some places and you can track them if you have like
Yeah.
infrared and stuff. I'd say the dialogue is like Resident Evil worthy. Like it's pretty bad. Like
So, my biggest question is, we have such a bias towards GoldenEye.
sure.
Is Perfect Dark technically a better game than GoldenEye? I mean, I like I said, I will prefer GoldenEye forever. It is my favorite. But do you think Perfect Dark is better?
Yeah.
Like is it multiplayer at least?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. There's so much more happening. There's a crazy mode that like the frame rate was so janky that like I never really explored that much. But like there's that weird mode where like one guy's
camera
joining
off
dark
work,
and the
yeah.
other guy's like any player that might pop up in the level. Again, like it's just
Yeah.
like the Far Side. It's like what shooters ever did that since? You know, like not a lot of people explore it. There was like co-op. There were all sorts of crazy things, like whether they performed well. That I think just on paper, like as far as an achievement, like they clearly put way more work into Perfect
Well,
Dark.
you
than
could
they
have
did
like
GoldenEye.
bots and stuff running around too, which was pretty like,
Yeah.
unheard of on
Oh yeah, like it
console.
just
yeah.
it's
Beat Sim.
completely impossible bots that are programmed to just like the moment they see you headshot you right between the eyes, and you're like, well, that was fun.
Hey, there was Meat Sim too, who just ran laps and
Meat
kind of threw a punch
Sim!
once in a while.
Yeah, there's just so much there. Like the practice range that you could go and like try out every single one of the weapons, and then that had their own achievements that you had to like
Oh,
really get
man.
good at it. Like there were parts about
did
weapons
that.
that I didn't even know that you could do. Like there was one gun that you can just throw as a grenade when it's out of ammo, and like
One thing I loved was because I had the same group of my friends play every single day. I mean, we played GoldenEye and Perfect Dark every day for like 5 years. Perfect Dark keeps track of your stats. So I remember every single one of my friends and I could create a profile, and then it would save like your kills and deaths and wins. And I thought that was the coolest thing because it just made everyone more competitive.
you can like break the gun sim or like the shooting range and actually like get out like while you're in the thing. Like you can like
Yeah.
like one of the missiles you can like actually get it out of the room and fly around the character. And
Blood is so mad right now. He's like, capture, capture, capture.
No,
Capture.
well, it's we are way too long on this game in particular.
It's
There's
amazing.
a lot to
Cream
talk
of the
about.
crop.
man.
I'll end on one note. The irony is, it's one of the best damn games that's in this collection. You
Yes.
absolutely have to play it, but you can just also get it other
Yeah.
places. Like it literally is just the 360 version of the game that you already played. But oh, what a game!
It's worth it.
So we were just talking earlier about this like charming humor in Banjo-Kazooie. This like really irreverent fourth wall breaking narrative and just like constantly self-aware and really setting up jokes that you don't really see a lot, save for like Secret of Monkey Island or other like fun comedy games. And then they decide like that's not enough. So like we got to talk about poo.
No, here's one of the things. Like, there's these great documentaries in there, and one of them was talking. It's behind the scenes making of Conquer, and there was the team, and they're working on Conquer, and then all of a sudden, the guys that were working on Banjo-Kazooie come in, and they're like making the same kind of game as they are, and they're like, what the heck? We got to like differentiate ourselves. We got to kind of go back to the drawing board with this game, and so they went all out. And what's funny is on the Rare Replay collection, when you go to that game to push start, like there's this warning message that pops up like, hey, this is a mature game. Like, just do you actually want to play this? Yes or no?
It's funny you say that because when I was young and there were video rental stores, I walked into a Blockbuster and rented that game with my parents. I had no idea. I just saw the box.
You had the
Squirrel
box
on the
even
box.
had a giant warning on the box. It was enormous.
Did not see the warning. Take it home expecting just some, jolly like Banjo-Kazooie style game, and it was just very ramped up. I was kind of
Extremely.
shocked. Yeah.
And I mean, you get completely pissed drunk at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is the reason that I've avoided the game for all this time, and I probably still won't play all the way through it. It's just way over top for me, and I think that other people are still going to be in that ballpark. It's like I'm not really into all this crazy potty humor and some of the even more far out things that go in there. But I cannot help but appreciate what the heck they pulled off on the N64.
Graphic.
This is like one of the most impressive N64
Yeah.
games. I mean, the frame rate and performance is a little janky, but the amount of animation, the fact that everything is VO'd after all the
I was thinking
in
like
Banjo,
Right, or just Zelda being like, we got a quick solve here. No one says anything ever. But Resident Evil 2 is like the only other game I can think of that would appear on the N64 that would have that much dialogue in it. Like huge scenes, and that's that's the thing about the humor is it's not just this. It'd be one thing if you read all of this, potty humor, but like all these distinctive characters,
the
really
money
distinctive
talks
voices,
to you. What in the world? Like, why does the money even talk?
Love the emphasis on cash in that game. I'm all about it. Like heists.
And you pay the guy, and the money's
Yeah.
like, oh, this guy stinks. I'm just gonna run out back to you. I'm like, sure.
It's actually as over the top and childish as some of it is, and poop jokes and potty jokes and stuff. Some of the humor in there, I remember, is really smart and really hilarious.
Well, the first time you die, like, you meet Greg, the Grim Reaper, and it's like,
Yes.
oh, I hate squirrels. You guys can just come back to life whenever you want. It was like this whole long cutscene. And I will say that there are so many cutscenes that I think that does get in the way a bit.
Okay.
Because we're like, I'm playing the game. Oh, another cutscene. I'm playing it. Another cutscene.
Yeah, and I remember just not stopping the story because I didn't think it was cool or I just wanted to play something else. I think I got stuck. I think it definitely has that like.
Old
It's fun if you
school.
make something that's really bizarre, but if I just have no idea even where I'm supposed to go or what I'm supposed to do, then like that's the issue because you never know what's going to happen, and like that's a good thing, but at the same time they can set up scenarios that are just super confusing. Boss fights, you're like, I don't get these dynamics at all.
One thing I do think is interesting is that like the idea of a button being context sensitive was so bizarre that they felt the need to like explain it with an in-game character and like have these giant buttons on the ground. It's like, okay, if you go here on this plate on the ground and push the button, then something unexpected will happen.
I remember multiplayer being really creative.
We have to talk about multiplayer before we're going to talk
Yes.
about this game because when I stopped playing the story because I
Yeah.
got
That's
stuck,
something I didn't capture,
still
so we'll
played
have to do that.
multiplayer for so
It
long.
is so
specifically
different.
blood. The mode that you have to capture that's so incredible is like the beach.
The beach!
It's like this. It's this
Attack and defend.
You're in a tower and you can have it's 4-player multiplayer, so you can have a certain number of people on the Teddy's side, or you can have people on the squirrel side. And the squirrels are all, it's basically World War II, like the squirrels are all just kind of like refugees that are like running. And you basically just have to get to the end of this, you have to get to the base
beachhead.
of this tower, and then you escape. And it seems like easy. We actually had a rule with my friends. It was kind of like screen peeking in GoldenEye. We had a rule that no one could get the rocket launcher because like you're dead if I'm like you're not. I can see where you're running. I'm gonna lead, and like I might miss you twice, but that third time you're dead. Whereas like sniper rifle and machine gun were kind of tricky. Like you could take a couple of hits, and especially if it was the best way to play it is one guy on the Teddy's team versus 3 squirrels. So like if you get on a Gatling gun and you're just mowing up this place, you're waiting for him to go shoot that other guy. And then in the corner of your eye, you see this little squirrel, and the sound effects are so great because the squirrels are all just like, just like running across. And like, it's fun because if you make it and you survive, it's fun. If you like are just about to make it and you just peek your head out and like a sniper shot just blows your head up and blood's like spurting all over the place, it's fun too.
It
Like
was
it's fun to
really
win or
fun.
lose. Like I was blown away how much fun that one mode is. And I know there's other multiplayer modes specifically. And I was bummed when they did the 360 tune-up.
Wasn't it that original Xbox?
They changed the.
They remade it.
I think that was the first Xbox.
Was it? Yeah.
It was original
yeah.
Xbox.
The original Xbox. Sorry. Yeah. They changed up the multiplayer modes, which bummed me out.
Yeah.
And then there's a full-on racing mode. I remember there was a weird egg one where you had to steal eggs from like
From a dinosaur.
from
Yeah.
a
And you could be the dinosaur and like chase. It's
And
the same
then-
kind of thing where like I mean it's in a weird way it's like what we're doing now with Evolve and like Fable Legends, just kind of asymmetrical, like really changing up the roles
Yeah.
of like what one person's doing versus the other in a multiplayer mode.
And then there's the heist, which obviously I love. You like rob a bank and then you have to like steal money from the vault.
All this is coming back to me.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
There's so many cool modes. It was so different than anything else.
I think Hugh and I are going directly into your office to record some Conquer multiplayer.
Yeah,
right
we're
after
gonna
this.
have to do some of that. I think I might still do this the mixed thing just because I know some people are not gonna be into the violence and the craziness but it's definitely it's done a lot of cool things.